6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The Voice of Stockton. For more information on The Voice of Stockton, go to thevoiceofstockton.org.
The views and opinions expressed in the following program do not necessarily reflect those of KXVS The Voice of Stockton or its parents, affiliates, management, and staff.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another amazing episode of the Phone Booth here on KXVS, The Voice of Stockton. My name is Ed Heitman, your host for today's program, and joining me in the studio today is my good friend and co-host, Brian Rodriguez.
Hello.
How you doing today, man?
Pretty good, pretty good.
Good to hear, good to hear. Now, for those of you unfamiliar of what the show is all about, The Phone Booth is a show completely dedicated to pop culture. Anything from movies to video games to comic books to just about anything you can think of. You name it, we do our very best to try and cover it. Now, to be honest, it was a bit of a slow week today, but we were able to scrounge up some news for you guys, as well as a few trailers and a good couple of bit of discussion pieces. So we're going to get started first off with the weekly recap. Now, about a year ago, rumors had surfaced that along with the now postponed Silver and Black, Sony is working on some solo films for the Spider-Man villains, Mysterio and Kraven the Hunter. Now, after a year, we finally have some development. According to Collider, the writer for Equalizer 2, Richard Wenk, sorry, a little slow day, has been brought on to write a script for the Kraven the Hunter movie. Now, to be honest, I find this pretty interesting that this is taking place in its own separate universe, especially since the rumors have started to float around that Kraven the Hunter himself is going to be appearing in the sequel to Spider-Man Homecoming, Spider-Man Far From Home, as it's been announced. And to be honest, I'm curious as to who would be cast as the famous Hunter Kraven. And I'd be interested in seeing what his motive is, because, to be honest, in the comic books, his major role in the comic books is that he's always trying to hunt down Spider-Man and the most powerful people in the world. Brian, what are your thoughts on this?
I think it could be interesting. The timing of this writer being brought on is weird, because a few months ago we got word that Silver and Black, the film about Black Cat and Silver Sable, had been postponed indefinitely due to the studio not sure how it felt about Venom and how Venom would perform, and it would really be down to Venom to sort of secure the future of this franchise. So it's odd they bring a writer on for a completely separate movie. It feels like they're bringing this writer on because they already know that Kraven the Hunter is going to be in Spider-Man Far From Home. Like, they've already gotten confirmation from Marvel, so they're sort of hedging their bets that they can make a movie spun off of that instead of necessarily spun off of Venom.
Well, I mean, it is a good possibility, and and this isn't the first time that a new movie has suddenly been announced due to the success of the Venom trailers alone. Recently in a previous episode of the Phone Booth, we also announced that a movie for Mobius the Living Vampire is also in the works, with Suicide Squad's Jared Leto cast as the titular role of the biological vampire in those comic books.
Yeah, and actually do have some news on that. Marvel has recently trademarked a bunch of merchandise for Morbius the Living Vampire.
Interesting. I didn't know about that.
Yeah, it covers a lot of stuff. It covers video games, it covers, like, party favors, things like that. It looks like they're gearing up to start selling merch for this.
That's cool. That's interesting. And there are also other films in the Spider-Man universe that have also been announced around the time that Venom's trailers had started to finally get dropped. We found out there's going to be a spin-off movie for Silk, another spider user in the shared universe. There is the Silver and Black film that's going to be talking about Silver Sable and Black Cat. And to be honest, I didn't know about Mysterio. People have been talking, rumors floating around about that.
Yeah.
But if he got his own film, to be honest, I think I'd be pretty interested in that, because Mysterio's whole origin is that he's a failed special effects coordinator who just decides to start using his own machines for his own personal gain.
Yeah.
Which could have its own benefits.
Rumors he's also supposed to appear in the next Spider-Man film, so it's possible we'll start to see movement on a Mysterio solo movie as well.
Yeah, that would be pretty interesting. But so far, that's about the information that we have regarding this possible film. We'll keep you guys updated on any information that we're able to gather. In the meantime, Brian, I'll pass this next little bit of news over to you.
If you were looking to buy a physical copy of the Spyro Reignited trilogy, the remastered version of the first 3 games in the Spyro the Dragon franchise, you're kinda out of luck if you thought all 3 games would be on the disc. I know, crazy idea, games being on a physical disc. It's recently been learned through language on the game's website that the second and third game in the series, Spyro 2, Ripto's Rage, and Spyro Year of the Dragon, will require additional downloads once you put the disc in. Now this irritates me a lot, because the physical disc used to, surprisingly, I know, crazy idea now, have the entire game or games on it. But now, because publishers can no longer be bothered to compress data or even finish the game before they actually print the disc, which I think could be this, I think maybe games 2 and 3 aren't actually finished yet, but they need to start printing discs for the September release. They are now just using day 1 patches to put games in the game you just bought.
Yeah, I kind of have problems with that as well. If you're going to be teasing to people about a supposed remastered trilogy, but in the end you're only able to play the first game and you'd have to go out of your lengths in order to get the other installments put in and whatnot, I admit that I too would have problems with that. At the same time, this kind of feels like it could possibly be them trying to rush the first installment out there, but it could also be due to the fact that they wanted to keep just the first game on the first disc. I mean, this isn't the first time that game companies have wanted to try and get rid of discs for their games.
Yeah.
Wanting to stick to only digital downloads in order to play certain game installments and whatnot,
Yeah, digital downloads are pure profit. They don't have to spend money on packaging or the discs or the shipping of anything. But the reason people still buy physical copies is in a lot of places in America and abroad, there isn't a good enough internet set up to actually download games efficiently.
Yeah, that's true. In the place that I'm staying at, when it comes to downloading games on one of the people who live there, he has a PlayStation 4, and he downloads certain games like Black Ops 3 and things like that. But due to the internet access of the house itself is pretty anti-Wi-Fi most of the time. So when we download a game, it could take like up to 4-5 hours just to get one game, and then we have to get the updates onto it, and then the patches, and then things like that, and it just takes forever to finally be able to get a game downloaded, And I think you're right, Brian. I think certain game companies are just unable to realize that fact, But anyways, let's move on to the next little topic here. So, Disney, if you guys are unfamiliar, Disney has been working on a bit of a streaming service. Same as DC, same as CBS, because everybody now suddenly wants to be like Netflix.
Fracture the market.
Yes, they want to bandwagon off the streaming service. And now Disney is apparently trying to take back the TV rights for the Star Wars films. According to Bloomberg, Disney is attempting to negotiate with Turner Broadcasting, who holds the TV broadcasting rights to Star Wars films through 2024. It appears that Disney is trying to secure the films for their upcoming streaming service, though the report says talks have stalled for a bit. And that little bit of news it bothers me. It genuinely bothers me, because there are a large portion of people out there who are introduced to the Star Wars franchise, who are introduced to the original trilogy, who are introduced to the prequels, who are introduced to the new trilogy, through television. You know, certain channels like FX or Sci-Fi or Spike or other channels like that, they'll have marathons that'll play these Star Wars films. And the fact that Disney is trying to take this away, essentially, and make it to where the only way to watch a Star Wars film, if you don't have the physical copy, is to go on to Disney's streaming service, is ludicrous. They're seriously trying to funnel down the only way to watch these films to where people have no choice but to get this streaming service in order to watch it.
And see, to me, this shows how quickly Disney came up with this idea for a streaming service. Because this deal with Turner was negotiated in 2016. That's only 2 years ago, and they're already trying to renege on an 8-year deal, 2 years in. I think it shows that this streaming service is fairly recent for Disney, and it's gaining a lot of momentum. But still, they are really rushing into this. They're trying to take back the Star Wars rights. They're already starting to produce TV shows. They haven't even announced a name for this service. They've already said they're not going to renew their, at this point, only 2 years old deal with Netflix at the end of the year for the Marvel and Star Wars movies, along with other Disney films. This feels rushed. This feels like they're really trying to rush into it for some reason, and I can't quite figure out why, because the streaming services have been around for years now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this isn't like the beginning of a gold rush. People have already rushed in trying to get their own streaming services out. And I'm wondering if there's something going on behind the scenes of Disney that means they need the streaming service to work.
I think Disney is rushing this streaming service for money. I mean, think about it. There are a large portion of people who love watching these films, who want to see new versions of the whatever series they own, Marvel, Star Wars, you name it. Mm-hmm. If they're able to take all these things, their films, the shows, and strip them out of where people normally view them, not able to see them on Netflix, for example, or they're not able to see it on cable anymore, for example, and they have no choice but to subscribe to Disney's streaming service and to view this content, that's going to make Disney a huge profit. They're going to make tons of money off of this because they're forcing people to have to pay to watch what they love to watch. You know, TV's done this numerous times. Normally, in order to watch movies, you still do. You have to subscribe to cable subscriptions to have specific channels that show movies for certain production companies. You know, 20th Century Fox. Usually, most movies that go through there, they're usually available on FX. You know, and HBO or Stars or things like that, they also have the rights to specific films in order to show them. And if Disney's able to get rid of all these other enemy markets, there is nothing stopping them from making a fortune off of this.
Yeah. Of course, they do have a contract with Turner, and it looks like Turner does not want to give rights to Star Wars, at least through 2024, because it probably makes a ton of ad revenue. I mean, people want to advertise during movies that people are watching, and everyone watches Star Wars. So it's looking like either Disney's going to have to put up a whole lot of money, or they're going to have to wait till 2025.
And to be honest, I'm not really sure if Disney will or won't supply that money, because if you think about it, they're going to come up with a ton of cash soon with this Disney-Fox merger deal that's coming on.
Yeah, that's a huge expenditure that's coming up, and they may not be able to float the idea of what would be a smaller expenditure but still a decent chunk of money this soon after such a major acquisition.
Yeah, totally. I agree. Anyways, Brian, I'm going to pass this next little bit of news over to you.
Okay, according to Sumo Digital Marketing Director Paul Porter, Crackdown 3 is close to completion. The game has been delayed many times. It was originally supposed to launch during 2016, and then it was moved to the launch of the Xbox One X in late 2017. It is now sitting at a February 2019 release date, and Paul Porter is claiming that the last delay was just to add some polish to the game. Now, recent reports have come out that said Microsoft, the publisher of the game, is unwilling to delay the game any further. They've already been pouring money into this game for... How long ago did Crackdown 2 come out? It was 2011, I believe?
Gosh, you know, I
honestly don't remember how long ago it was, but it was a while, and they've been pouring money into this sequel ever since. There have been multiple reboots, cancellations, and they've been advertising this game as, you know, a big sort of launch title or flagship title for the Xbox One with its, you know, cloud computing and destruction physics and this and that and all the other, and it keeps getting delayed. The perfect time to launch it would have been during the Xbox One X launch, just to show off the processing power, but it had to be delayed after lackluster gameplay sessions with alpha testers. And you know what? At this point, I'm thinking the game's going to come out in whatever state it's in. I don't know if it's going to be ready. I think it's probably going to need a lot of patching afterwards, but it's going to have to come out, or heads will... You know what? No, it won't have to come out. It will come out. Microsoft will release it in whatever state it's in just to make back some of the huge production cost.
Definitely, definitely. Now, I find it so odd that that this game is being delayed as long as it has been. When was it... Okay, so, for example, when was it originally announced that Crackdown 3 was going to come out?
It was officially announced at E3 2014, though rumors about it being in development have been around for a while before that.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, I'm always scared about games that are being delayed this long, you know, because if it keeps getting constantly delayed, and in the end, when it finally gets released, it's not what we expect. It's never what we expect if it gets delayed very long. Now, sometimes this could be a good thing. Like Fallout 4, for example, I remember that being delayed every so often in order to get finishing touches. But I worry that, because with any game that gets delayed, it has the opportunity of either being like Fallout 4, which was a good game franchise, or it can end up being a Duke Nukem Forever, which is a terrible game that was stuck in development for years and years, to where when it finally came out, it was no longer a popular game series, and people were like, oh, well, okay, well, I guess that game is out now.
Difference between Fallout 4 and Crackdown, however, is that Fallout 4 was never officially announced or given a release date in any delays it had. It was announced and then a few months later it came out on the date they gave. And see, there were rumors of delays, and there were rumors that it got pushed back and this and that, but it was never officially announced, so it was never officially delayed.
Yeah.
Crackdown has been given multiple official release dates, but had to be moved back by, at this point, 3 years?
Gosh, I want to say, yeah.
Yeah, 2016 to early 2019, 3 years. That's,
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, man, that's...
Yeah.
It's awful. But anyways, we seriously hope that this game is going to be good when it comes out. What we've seen at E3 2018 so far, the game looks amazing. Who can honestly hate a commercial with Terry Crews in it promoting explosions and cool guns and all that good stuff? So we'll just have to hang in there and see how that goes. Moving on to the next topic. Now, if you guys aren't aware, it's been confirmed, actually, that there is a Bill and Ted 3 in the works. Now, if you guys are unfamiliar with the Bill and Ted franchise, it involves Alex Winter playing the role of Bill and Keanu Reeves playing the role of Ted as two totally awesome dudes who time travel back in time, and all sorts of shenanigans ensue. And recently it was announced that there's going to be another Bill and Ted movie in the works with the original actors in there. But a while back, Keanu Reeves had said that he had his doubts about the film ever getting made. He was excited for it, and he was willing to star in it and do whatever, but he said honestly he has no idea if this is ever going to actually get done. However, according to Alex Winter, the voice of Bill, at a Television Association Critics panel via Slashfilm, he said the movie is still in pre-production, early 2019. He's still being told to hold these dates, so it's safe to say the Bill and Ted movie is still safe, for now. We've yet to get an official title for this film. Hopefully it still gets released in early 2019, but we'll keep you informed on any information that comes out. And now, I gotta say, it's reassuring, but it's also a 50-50 thing. The fact that the voice of Bill is saying that it's still in the works, he still has faith in it, while the voice of Ted, on the other hand, is saying he doesn't have faith in it and he thinks this movie is going to get scrapped. It makes me wonder, who should I trust in this situation, you know?
Okay, some important context here. Keanu Reeves' statements were about a month ago, while Alex Winter's were fairly recent. It's possible something changed in that time, because the rumor is they were having trouble getting funding for the film. It's possible in a month they secured a source of funding, and that's why it's happening. Also, Keanu Reeves never said it was just never going to happen. He just said he was worried that it might take a while to get made.
True.
So I'm thinking they maybe Alex Winter is just more optimistic about it. Maybe they found a new source of funding. Who knows?
Yeah. But one thing that I could guarantee is that it is pretty reassuring that we finally, that we know for a fact that this project is still in the works. It hasn't been scrapped or anything like that. It's just right now we have literally no idea what's going on at the moment. We have no idea where this film is going to where this film is at this point. Besides the fact that it's in pre-production, but I have high hopes for what's going to happen soon. I'm going to carry on this last little news piece. That's fine with you, man. Now, exciting news is that The Sandlot is finally getting a prequel. 20th Century Fox had recently announced that they will be making a prequel to the much-beloved franchise, bringing back the original director of the first film, David Mickey Evans. Supposedly, this movie will be explaining the origins of the Beast, a creature feared by the cast of the original Sandlot, but it turned out to be nothing more than a lovable English Mastiff named Hercules. Not much information has been given, but we'll keep you informed.
It's going to be the origin story of an English Mastiff.
Yes, because in the first Sandlot, I know you haven't got to watch that one, so I'll give you a little context. The kids, they were afraid of this creature called the Beast, and it was on the other side of this picket fence by the Sandlot, and the Beast was responsible for tons of baseballs disappearing. Kids would play baseball and the ball would fly over, and then once it goes into the yard, it's done for because it's the Beast. But in the first Sandlot, the main character, he's not too familiar with baseball, but he tries to hang in and be cool with the kids. And he, without knowing how important it is, he ends up trying to play with a Babe Ruth autographed baseball.
Oh no.
That ends up being knocked over the Beast's fence, and he has no choice but to try and find a way to get the ball. And the whole first movie is about them trying to attempt different methods of going in there and obtaining the baseball from the Beast. But the main character finally goes in there and he just starts running and running and running, and he finds out in the end that it's nothing more than a lovable hound. It was just had a bad reputation. And now we're finally going to be able to get an origin story as to the first incident and how this legend of this dangerous beast that would tear people apart and spit bones out of his doghouse and stuff like that. It's gonna be great.
I'm just you know what? Maybe it'll work. I'm just skeptical of an origin story for a dog.
Well, it's not necessarily for just the dog. It's going to be showing the first kids who lose their ball over the fence, the legend being built up and all that stuff. It's a crucial part of the film, but it's not going to be just about the dog.
Okay.
It's basically just like a retelling of okay, you want to know why people call this dog the Beast? Here's really why we call him the Beast.
Okay.
But anyways, I'm looking forward to that, ladies and gentlemen. But that about does it for today's weekly recap. Now, it's time to enter our next little segment, in which I like to call Trailer Talk. Now, if you guys are first-time viewers, the Trailer Talk is when we like to talk about the latest trailers to come out within the week, and we were able to wrangle up 3 good little trailers for you guys to see. The links are already available in the description of this video. So we're going to take an opportunity to talk about them. Starting off with the second trailer for the Venom movie.
This was a good trailer. This showed us a lot more of Venom, fully Venom. It's not just, 1 second of his head or a brief scene or anything like that. We get to see the full body. We get to see him fighting and interacting. We actually get to see some of the Venom symbiote's personality, which is very fun and kind of a jerk.
Yeah, yep, definitely. And I think it's fun because we got to see a lot more action scenes implementing the symbiote. We find out there's a poster. We found out that the symbiote is bulletproof. We found out that it has the ability to just grab people on its own. We found out that there is another symbiote within the movie, Riot, which we talked about in the previous episode and whatnot.
I've got a silver and red color scheme.
Mm-hmm. And one thing that I have to give credit for is that in the first trailer we had concerns that the CGI was so-and-so. But in this trailer, the CGI is perfect, man. It is perfect.
It's really good. I think by the time of the first trailer, you just didn't have it quite complete yet, but they wanted to get... So this is the second trailer, but the third showing of Venom. The first teaser trailer didn't have Venom in it at all. I think the second trailer maybe have been rushed to appease fans. And now this third trailer, I think this is a complete picture of Venom. This is a completed Venom. Oh, that's back. And I think...
Never mind.
You know what? It can stay down there until it learns to behave. It apparently doesn't like Venom. It refuses to be a part of this conversation, so it can just stay down there.
Okay, fair enough.
Anyway,
fair enough.
Looks good. Trailer's fun.
Yeah, the trailer definitely looks fun. I do have to admit my favorite scene from the second Venom trailer is when Venom is fighting Riot, and there's a scene where like the symbiotes like split up, and there's like this huge webbing going on, and you see the two hosts in the suits like very minimally, like it's very hard to see them at first, but like the detail put into that one shot has me extremely excited.
Yeah.
Anyways, let's move on to the next trailer, and that trailer is Papillon. Papillon, right. I always have problems with that word. It's starring Charlie Hunnam, Rami Malek, and others. The epic story of Henry Papillon Cherrier, a safecracker from the Parisian underworld who is framed for murder and condemned to life in the notorious penal colony on Devil's Island. Determined to regain his freedom, Papillon forms an unlikely alliance with convicted counterfeiter Louis Degas, who in exchange for protection agrees to finance Papillon's escape. Now, I genuinely loved this trailer. It seems like a very high-octane escape film. I'm not entirely sure what year this is supposedly taking place in, but you could tell that it takes place back sometime in history, just from their prison uniforms alone. It's the black and white stripes horizontally, as opposed to the uniforms nowadays. And the whole film essentially is an escape plan, trying different methods to try and get off of this island. And later on, it just seems to have these like really trippy, psychedelic kind of aspects at the end of this trailer.
Yeah, it looks interesting. It looks like it could be a good escape film. You know what? I'm interested in seeing it. I'd be interested in watching it.
Yeah, same here. And I have to admit the performances were pretty good too. Though again, I've yet to see a film with Rami Malek in it that I can't really give him credit for in regards to acting. I liked him in Mr. Robot. I thought he was okay in the Need for Speed film, to be honest. And this film looks pretty good too. So I definitely recommend to give that a watch at some point. And leading up next is our final trailer that we're going to be talking about, King of Thieves, the international trailer, starring Michael Caine, Michael Gambon, Charlie Cox, and others. A crew of retired crooks pull off a major heist in London's jewelry district. But after this heist pulls off, and the gentlemen all have access to the gold in their hands and whatnot, you start to see a little game of backstabbing going on. People are starting to turn on each other, and it's all these angry old men just kind of, I don't know, it's interesting, you know? Mm-hmm. It's the traditional bank robber's tale, and this is based on a true story of London's biggest jewel heist, but man, it looks pretty good. It looks, it has a decent amount of action and it has a decent amount of comedy. Brian, what are your thoughts?
Looks really good. It's got a lot of actors I like Michael Caine, Michael Gambon, Charlie Cox, all of whom are excellent. And it's fun seeing sort of retirees bank heists. You know, you've got these old men during the heist. One of them can't quite fit through the hole to get into the vault because he's put on weight. One's mostly deaf, so they have to communicate with him very loudly, which is hard during a bank heist. And
Oh man, I have, yeah, I do agree. I think that this is pretty good, but I think this is going to be a good watch. This isn't the first time that we've seen a film with a bunch of retired people pulling off a big heist or a big action film. I remember a while back there was these two action films for the franchise known as Red, where it was a bunch of retired folks who were. I forget, were they like professional soldiers or assassins?
They were CIA operatives, I believe.
Yeah, and we got to see them in action, and it was just like this high-octane action film with the only significant change was that they were retired folks. So this looks like a good film, and it's based on a true story and whatnot. So definitely give that one a watch as well. Now, that about does it for our trailer talk, ladies and gentlemen. And without further ado, it's time for us to try and cover the discussion pieces for today's episode. Now, first off, I'm going to pass this first discussion piece over to you, Brian, to talk about an event that you've been pretty excited about, one that we mentioned in the previous episode of the Phone Booth, RTX. Now, first off, would you mind explaining to people what RTX is all about?
RTX is the Rooster Teeth Expo. It was started by the production company Rooster Teeth about 6 or 7 years ago as sort of a fan gathering, and it has exploded into something bigger. The video games are shown off for the first time. Currently this year, AT&T is showing off 5G technology. The Spyro Reignited trilogy is being shown off. Harmonix is there with new songs for Rock Band. New Rooster Teeth shows are announced. New seasons for shows are announced. All kinds of merch, all kinds of fun fan gatherings. It's amazing.
Awesome, awesome. So, what were some of the things that you enjoyed over there at RTX? What you've seen from the event?
Well, currently we're only about halfway through it, but so far we've gotten a premiere date for the next season of their animated series RWBY, October 27th. There will be a theater event on October 25th where they will be showing the first episode of the new season in theaters, along with, director's commentary on episodes of the last season and fun other extras. A RWBY YA novel was announced following Team Coffee after the fall of Beacon. It was announced that there would be a Japanese manga adaptation of the first 2 volumes of the show to go along with a manga anthology currently ongoing. 3 songs from the show are going to be in Rock Band, which is what Harmonix is showing off currently on the floor. Genlock, their mecha anime series, announced a bunch of castings, including Miles Luna, Lindsay Jones, Blaine Gibson, all of whom are Rooster Teeth employees who have been all over their stuff. Lindsay Jones is the voice of Ruby on RWBY.
Okay.
And also, they formally announced Spikeface, a animated horror comedy produced by Rob McElhenney, who you may know as Mac from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. He's also directing the Minecraft movie.
Man, all of this sounds amazing, man. And I have to admit, I'm most excited about the RWBY content that was announced over there at RTX. I'm still a new fan to the series. Brian here was the person who introduced me to the franchise, and I've gotten up to trying to tackle Volume 5. My personal favorite was around Volume 3, but the fact that a new season was announced, we're getting a manga adaptation of the first 2 volumes, because I love the manga. I love the way that the manga versions of the show's pulling off things. The soundtrack's good. It's not necessarily my favorite part of the series, but I do admit there is a lot of talent put into the music. So the fact that it's possibly being included into Rock Band is a really great thing. I am looking forward to that as well. And I am looking forward to Genlock as well, because I have been looking forward to some new content on Rooster Teeth. I admit I'm a little picky when it comes to finding content, so I am looking forward to that. Now, for people out there who are unfamiliar with them, would you mind explaining who Rooster Teeth is to the public?
Rooster Teeth is an online production company based in Austin, Texas. They got their start back in 2003 by making the Machinima series Red vs. Blue. Machinima is essentially animation done in a video game. They did it in the Halo game, and it's been going on for 16 seasons now, with a 17th planned. Then in 2013, they launched RWBY, which was their first wholly original animation series. Not based off an original property, not done in the Halo engine. It was just all original animation, and it was a smash success. It's been translated into, well, it's been dubbed in Japan and aired there. The first 4 volumes now, I believe. They're working on the 5th one over there. There's been manga adaptations. There's a absolute ton of merchandise. They've had they've got actual, big anime voice actors in there.
Isn't there like a mobile game in the works too?
There is a mobile game currently in the works, Amity Arena. It's had its own video game in Grim Eclipse, and the characters appeared in the latest Blaze Blue game.
Cross tag battle.
Mm-hmm. It's Ruby's Exploded and Rooster Teeth. They make a ton of content. They've made live action dramas in Day 5. They've made South Park style animation in Camp Camp. There's a spin-off of Ruby called Ruby Chibi that's all comedy. Mm-hmm. They've made a ton of stuff, and they are constantly growing and expanding, and it's amazing.
Yeah, I have to admit, I gotta give these guys a lot of credit for getting this big off of what they originally started with, because originally all they started with was Red versus Blue. It was just them having some fun on Xbox Live, coming up with ways to create episodes for content. And I believe originally Red vs. Blue started off as like 1 episode or so, and people demanded more, so they created more episodes, yeah?
Yeah, it originally started off as like a dramatic trailer for what was supposed to be a gritty drama, and then it turned into 1 comedy episode, which turned into 6, which turned into a season, which turned into 2 seasons, which kept going and going because fans watched it. They sold, the DVDs. They made a ton of money. They got shut down by the FBI briefly.
Yeah, I just think it's interesting. They started off with something so small, and it created such a huge success for them that they're now an official production company. They have their own big building and everything. Mm-hmm. And I believe we recently were going to announce on the news, but we're waiting until now, that Rooster Teeth has come up with a way to help animators create their content, yes?
Yes, they have started a $2.5 million fund to help online animators on places like YouTube and other platforms develop and produce their own series. And along with this plan is a plan to sort of bring them into Rooster Teeth Network to get them more ad revenue, to get them, more visibility, things like that. And essentially this big fund to help animators get started, which is really great, given that Rooster Teeth got its start because of the internet, because of fans on the internet, and they're trying to give back to the community. They always have. They've been doing it since they started, and it's really nice to see that they genuinely care about this. This isn't a marketing stunt. This isn't them just trying to make more money. I mean, yes, they probably like to make money off it so they can keep doing their cool stuff, but they genuinely care about their community, about their content, about the other people online creating this content. And that's amazing to me.
Yeah, I think it's genuinely impressive as well. I love the fact that they're trying their best to help out in the community and everything. Now, before we jump into our next discussion topic, is there anything else that you're looking forward to that might be coming out at RTX in its final times?
I always love the Rooster Teeth animated adventure panel because they do lots of crazy stuff with it. They typically show things there that they don't actually put up online, that you just see it at the panel and then it's gone. Maybe more announcements of new shows that they haven't done yet, but it's honestly, I'm just excited for the event. I'm just excited to see what will happen. It's hard to tell, but it's always exciting.
Definitely. I'm looking forward to seeing more development going on within the event. Now, unfortunately, our next topic isn't as exciting. We've been trying our best to avoid the James Gunn situation.
Yep.
We mentioned it back in Comic-Con 2018 that he had been fired from Disney and unable to direct the 3rd volume of the Guardians of the Galaxy franchise. And like I said, we've been trying to avoid it. We here at the Phonebooth do not like to try and dabble with drama. We've been trying to avoid the Jessica Price situation, the Star Wars fan base and stuff. But with this, it's blowing up literally all over Hollywood. Yep. People have come out, numerous support. Selma Blair, who is known for the Hellboy films, had endorsed a petition that was already put up on Change.org to try and rehire James Gunn. That required 300,000 votes, and it's already now beyond 300,000 votes. Luke Cage has come to James Gunn's support. His brother Sean Gunn has come to his support. Lots of people in Hollywood are defending James Gunn, and lots of people are also leaving Twitter. Michael Rooker, who was known for his role as Yondu, had recently left Twitter. Selma Blair has left Twitter. Rian Johnson, director of Star Wars Episode 8, had deleted over 20,000 tweets. And he said this was because he doesn't want any backlash to happen on him as well, because now tons of celebrities are having these old dark humor jokes being brought up onto them as well. But we have a recent bit of news that shows even more support of James Gunn. An open letter had been written by the entire leading cast of Guardians of the Galaxy. Everybody, Star-Lord, Gamora, Drax, Rocket, Groot, everybody. They all shown support for James Gunn. At the very end, they even penned their names at the bottom of this letter.
Yeah.
Now, it's nice to see that people are showing their support. Even though Disney recently openly said, it is highly unlikely that they're ever going to rehire James Gunn. They are a family company, and as hypocritical as they have been, I guess they don't want to make a harmful business impact upon themselves. But it's nice to show that there are people out there who are willing to acknowledge, hey, these jokes aren't defensible, but at the same time, these were jokes done in the far, far past. To label somebody who was different back then to be the exact same thing, even though they have changed nowadays, just seems a little, the fact that people are supporting him just seems good. What are your thoughts, Brian?
I think this entire situation is kind of a mess. I think that James Gunn should be chastised for the jokes he made, but he has since apologized for them, and he even apologized for them back years ago after they came up the first time. And I think the firing may have been an overreaction, but I don't think Disney's going to rehire him. I think they've made their stance fairly clear, and to go back on it now would be to show that essentially, if you're someone who does something bad, like, say, Roseanne did, and you get enough fan support, we'll hire you back because our stance is, who cares? I think Disney isn't going to hire him back because they need to maintain their authority or, stance on this. Mm-hmm. And I think it's good to see the cast showing support. It's good to see his friends and all these people showing support, but I don't think it's going to get him rehired. I think Disney has drawn their line in the sand, and I don't see James Gunn coming back. I'd like him to, but I don't think it's going to happen.
I agree. As much as I would like to see James Gunn come back, Disney, from a business perspective, just will not be able to. Now, I find it a little odd that they're trying so hard to keep James Gunn away, saying they're a family business, when Johnny Depp, for example, recently it had been revealed that Johnny Depp had been beating his own wife. There was even video footage coming out about this whole incident. Yep. And when finding out about this, Disney took no effort at all, didn't even try to hesitate the Pirates of the Caribbean film franchise while it was still in development for the next installment. And they just let it happen. Disney didn't say a word. And I find it a little odd that now they decide to say, okay, well, this is too far. We don't want to talk about that. We don't want this in our company now. Now, there's a theory that our general manager had, Don Mazewski, that this is perhaps a way to divert people from the real problem, the people in Hollywood who are actually out there doing these harmful things to women and children and all this other stuff.
Weinstein and Spacey and people like that. People that have actually, assaulted people, that have caused real harm. And I'm not trying to say that James Gunn's tweets had no effect, that they weren't harmful to people, because they most likely were, because they were very, very offensive. But James Gunn is a different type of person from your Weinsteins or Spaceys. He is not that type of monster. And it seems like a lot of this is being used to sort of try to divert attention from the Me Too movement, from the actual genuine monsters out there, and sort of focus it on this, again, terrible but much smaller issue.
Definitely. And I think that's pretty well said. The jokes that James Gunn had made, they are terrible jokes. You can't defend it. And he perhaps has offended people out there, survivors of child abuse and all that stuff, who were probably offended by James Gunn's tweets. But then there are people out there like Weinstein who actually have done these things. People that we should be paying attention to, people who we should be talking about. But we're not talking about them right now. Because right now, all eyes are on James Gunn. So, while I think it is definitely important to pay attention to Gunn and see what happens, I believe people are still trying to get an internal investigation done on Gunn, and I still think that's a good idea, just so that way we could put whatever statements have been thrown out there to truth to verify whether he is or isn't what we were all saying he is. But at the same time, we need to remember that there are still monsters out there that we have to pay attention to, and we can't let this distract us. So that was about it for our other discussion piece. Now we have one last little bit in order to help us vent a little bit. If you're unfamiliar with our show, we have a segment where my good friend Brian here likes to rant about the video game series Destiny, a game that he has a love-hate relationship with. And today we get to hear another little tidbit that really grinds his gears about the Destiny franchise. Now, Brian, take it away.
Today's topic is last week we talked about the story and the lore and how badly Bungie treats it. I'm going to talk this week about the pacing of this story, using two examples, Destiny the Taken King and Destiny 2. Now see, the pacing of the story is the rate at which events happen and when specific events happen, and pacing can make or break a story. Bad pacing means events are happening in a bad order, everything happens at the beginning, then you have a big lull in the middle, people go away. And ideally in a video game, you want the main story to cover the entire game, maybe leave a little bit at the end just so, some openness, and with side stories sprinkled in. Destiny 2 does not do this. Destiny 2 front-loads the campaign for its base game and its 2 expansions so far, so they are the first thing you play. You have to beat these campaigns, however short they are, but that's a totally different issue, before you can access a majority of the content in the game. And after that, sure, there are a few side stories, a few short missions here and there with a little bit of lore, but basically, you're done with the story for Destiny 2 in the first few hours of what's supposed to be a 100-200 hour game. And see, Destiny, it doesn't spread its story over all its activities. It front-loads its story and sort of leaves you hanging. Like the raid that came in later had basically no build-up to it. There was one minor mission that's easy to miss that sort of hints at what's coming, but suddenly out of nowhere this giant planet-eating spaceship shows up. You go onto it, do a bunch of stuff that's never explained, kill a boss that doesn't get enough build-up unless you get all the armor from the raid, and then it keeps doing that for each expansion. The raids are completely unrelated, the story doesn't really tie into anything, it's paced badly. But Bungie has done excellent pacing and story before in Destiny the Taken King. Now in the Taken King, the first thing you do is the story. It's also front-loaded, it's the main campaign. However, after that, each side activity has a significant role in the plot. You beat the story, you defeat Oryx the Taken King, but at the end, he uses his power to absorb enemies and break their will on himself. And the last thing you see is him cackling as he disappears into nothingness, and you know this isn't the end. You know that this is not the end, that he is still out there, but you just can't find him yet. So after that, you start doing missions and strikes, and an event called the Court of Orcs, which is sort of a horde mode. And each of these is you taking down powerful minions of Oryx that are trying to fill his power vacuum left. You are keeping the command structure of this race in disarray so no one can take the power that Oryx had. And you do strikes. You kill someone who betrayed Oryx, who is now trying to take the throne. You kill his generals. You learn story about Oryx. You learn the story about the Hive, the race he leads, which eventually builds up to the raid, the King's Fall, where you invade Oryx's own personal dimension to kill his spirit once and for all.
Ooh.
And this covers all the content of the game. And even after that, there was an update that added a new strike that told the story of Oryx's apprentice, who was trying to take his place after you finally kill Oryx. And even then, Oryx's story isn't done. It's told through a weapon you can create through the raid that hints he might still be alive in some capacity. And see, the Taken King uses all of its content to tell one incredibly long story of you hunting down a god and killing him. And Destiny 2 doesn't do that. It sort of tries to get the story out of the way just so you can start grinding for gear and doing all the fun public events and the raids that have no real connection to each other. Because I think Bungie has sort of lost sight of the fact that story and Star Wars is betraying us now too, that story and gameplay need to be linked. They're not two separate entities that can be completely, separated from each other, one over here, one over there. They need to be linked together to create a great game. And with hints that Forsaken is going to do this, that there's going to be a long, involved story through all the activities, I'm hoping maybe they've learned this lesson again. However, until then, I'd say I am apprehensive about this story. I'm apprehensive about Destiny 2 Forsaken, because Destiny and Bungie have not earned my trust back. They violated it, they lost it, so we'll see. But hopefully, they fix the pacing.
Oh, man. Those are some pretty good points, man. Well, anyways, that just about brings us close to the end of today's episode. Brian, do you have any last words?
No, that's... Yeah, no, I'm good.
Okay, good. Now, be sure to tune in, ladies and gentlemen, every Saturday from 1 to 2 as my good friend Brian and I try to cover all things pop culture. Movies, TV shows, video games, comics, you name it. We'll do our very best to cover it. Please stick around, and please have a wonderful, wonderful afternoon.
Bye.